continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Over the weekend, more bodies of soldiers from the fatal Sulu crash have been identified by authorities. Meanwhile, survivors of the incident, including civilians, are now slowly recovering and are assured that they will receive all-out support from the military. Ryan Ang with the rest of the story.
Over the weekend, Air Force officials and personnel once again paid a visit to injured soldiers and civilians in 3 hospitals in Zamboanga City. They were given tokens like food, medical supplies, and other necessities which were donated by their fellow soldiers from the Air Force and West Vincom.
Konting financial assistance at saka yung mga hospital hospital requirements, yung mga bills nila. Nagbigay ng tulong ang Philippine Air Force. Voluntarily silang naglagay sa mga shoe boxes ng kanilang mga tulong, mga hospital equipment, mga consumables, medical supplies na magagamit ng mga pasyente. At natuwa naman sila sa mga dinala namin.
Colonel Dennis Estrella, the commander of the Philippine Air Force Tactical Operations Wing, Western Mindanao, said he was happy to see that the survivors are slowly recovering. The group checked the conditions of their comrades and told them that other soldiers will support and extend all the help they can give until they fully recover.
Ibang sundalo natin nasa ICU pa kasi meron pang mga medical condition na ina-attend. Pero sa pag-usap ko doon sa mga doctors, sabi nila lahat sila ay improving ang condition. Kaya natutuwa ako.
Estrella also visited civilians who are heavily injured due to the incident. One of them was a 13-year-old boy who suffered burns on his face and parts of his body after the plane crashed on their house. Estrella said he was happy to see improvements in the boy's situation, who also expressed his dream of becoming a soldier.
Yung unang visit namin dito, meron pa siyang bandage sa ulo. Oo. Ngayon, natanggal na yung mga bandages niya. Sabi ko, alam na ng Air Force na mag-Air Force ka. Sabi niya, natuwa siya.
Okay.
So hintayin namin siya sa Air Force. Ibang-iba na siya. Nakatayo na siya, nakaupo sa kama, at nakikipag-usap na.
Estrella also noticed the fast recuperation of 5-month pregnant Patricia, who suffered the same fate and incurred burns on her arms and back.
Yung tawa niya ngayon, yung pakikipag-usap niya, mas mas mahaba na. At sabi ko rin sa kanya na galing din ako sa bayan nila sa Hulo kahapon, na-meet ko yung mga kamag-anak niya doon, yung mga kapitbahay. Ipinarating ko rin doon na nag-i-improve yung condition niya.
Meanwhile, the AFP also held a simultaneous interfaith memorial prayer to mourn and honor the casualties of the C-130 plane crash in Paticol, Sulu. At Camp Navarro, Zamboanga City, military personnel, public officials, and relatives of the fallen soldiers solemnly prayed at the chapel before they proceeded to the Dambana ng Kagitingan, where the Deputy Commander of West Vincom read the speech of the AFP Chief of Staff. He then joined Zamboanga City Mayor Ben Climaco in the wreath-laying ceremony, which was followed by the 3-volley of 21-gun salute and the sounding of taps. The soldiers then went at the front of the admin building where the flag was retreated. The relatives became emotional as they recalled the memories of their loved ones, but they say they need to be strong for the sake of their families.
Parang hindi talaga yung buo yung pamilya mo pag wala yung kasama mo sa buhay. Pero sa pangyayari mong ganun, kailangan pong magpakatatag ako para sa mga anak namin.
Siyempre po, emosyonal tayo, anak natin yun. Pero dapat lang tanggapin. Ganyan ang talagang mangyayari. Una-huli lang.
As of now, 8 more bodies of fallen soldiers have been identified by authorities, bringing the total to 28. Authorities are still waiting for the results of the DNA test of the other 21 who have yet to be identified. For News 5, Ryan Ang, we are One News.
Still on the C-130 crash, the Air Force says the plane's black box, or flight data recorder, which was retrieved last week, has been sent to the U.S. for analysis. The PAF says the analysis will take about a month, as the black box contains a voice recorder and a flight data recorder that will help determine what happened during the fatal crash. The Air Force added that recovery of all parts of the aircraft is now 100% complete, and the plane will be reconstructed in Mactan as part of the investigation. Meanwhile, the PNP is set to create a technical working group on the use of body cams. This comes after the Supreme Court released rules on the use of such devices in the execution of arrest and search warrants. In an interview with One News, PNP Chief Guillermo Eleazar welcomed the SC's move, saying this would help ensure compliance among his officers.
Ito nga will make our operations more transparent sa ating mga kababayan. And ito naman yung matagal nang pinag-uusapan. While it is true na hindi naman talaga, this will not solve everything. But basically, this will help us to become more accountable in everything that we do.
On the other hand, the National Union of People's Lawyers also lauded the new rules on requiring law enforcers to wear body cameras. However, in an interview with Radyo 5, NUPL President Edre Olalia also warned the public about possible loopholes in these rules.
Ano yan? Kung sabihin, ay, hindi namin na-on. Ay, nalobat. Ay, bakit humarang ka dyan? Ay, bakit yung umakyat hindi mo nakunan? So maraming mga instances na pwedeng magamit at sana wag naman. No? Pero, gayong paman, hindi naman yung recording lamang ang magiging ebidensya. Pwede yan ay sabayan ng testimonya, no? Saka yung tinatawag na siyensya.
With more and more countries reopening their economy, the World Health Organization says people must remain vigilant as COVID-19 variants threaten the world's gains against the virus. Let's watch this.
Do you think, Doctor, that the evolution of COVID has slowed?
I wouldn't say that at all. What we're seeing now is, of course, a diverging pandemic or a dual pandemic. There are parts of the world where vaccination coverage has reached the point where there is a slowdown, certainly of severe cases and people being ill enough to be hospitalized. But there are large parts of the world, and we were just naming a few countries where there are surges, where there's oxygen shortages, where there's a lack of beds and increasing mortality. In the last 24 hours, we've had close to 500,000 new cases being reported and about 9,300 deaths. Now, that's not a pandemic that's slowing down.
Yeah.
In fact, in 5 of the 6 WHO regions, cases are rising, and mortality in the African continent has gone up by about 30 to 40% in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Doctor, have you seen any new variants that could have resulted with, us vaccinating populations whilst cases are going up?
So, there are several reasons for why this is happening. Why are globally cases going up, and why are so many countries seeing a steep rise in cases? And I should add that these include countries that have unvaccinated populations and countries that have vaccinated 30, 40, or 50% of their population. So the reasons are the Delta variant is certainly the most transmissible, the most dangerous variant of the virus that we have seen so far. In fact, the original virus, if one infected person could spread it to 2 or 3 people, this variant, the Delta variant, one infected person can infect 8 people. They're also infectious for longer. So that's the first reason. The second is increased social mixing, what's called pandemic fatigue. People are getting back to their normal lives, either by compulsion because of economic reasons or otherwise. And third is the relaxation of public health and social measures. We've seen many countries and sub-regions and countries dropping all of the measures, including masking and physical distancing. And the fourth is the slow pace of vaccination globally. So these are the things that are contributing to the rise in cases that we're seeing over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
But is it likely that we'll see new variants in the coming months or quarters?
It's quite possible. We cannot predict, but the virus is evolving and mutating all the time. So we're already seeing within the known, like within Alpha and within Delta, we're seeing additional mutations, which can be quite dangerous. They could confer properties where the virus actually becomes even more resistant to vaccines. So, of course, the worst case scenario is that the virus becomes resistant to the existing vaccines, which has not happened so far. There's been some impact on the vaccine efficacy, but most of the vaccines that are being used are still highly efficacious against severe disease. But this is something we cannot predict. So it's really a race between getting our populations covered through vaccination and maintaining the measures till then to prevent the surge in cases. Because we know that the more the transmission that's happening, the more easily the virus can only mutate when it's actively multiplying and transmitting. So that's the way to stop further variants from arising.
Millennial nostalgia has fueled the boom in businesses related to Pokemon trading cards. This Bloomberg Quick Take tells us if we're going to need to catch them all.
It isn't about investing in stocks, but something many of us have invested time and money into for decades. We are talking about Pokemon. Nostalgia and stimulus checks have fueled a boom in Pokemon trading card activity. Well, let's get right to Lizette Chapman, who joins us live from San Francisco. She wrote about this for Bloomberg yesterday. Lizette, should I be calling my mom right now and seeing if she can find my brother's old Pokemon cards?
You know, you wouldn't be the first one to do that. There's the value has exploded over the past year. As has the volume of people, finding these old cards in their closets and sending them in and finding out in some cases they're worth thousands of dollars.
What?
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, Lizette, sorry, continue.
No. I was just saying that, in some cases, some have been worth as much as $1 million. Those are super rare. Some, of course, are worth nothing. So it's kind of a crapshoot depending on the condition and also how rare they are, of course.
So, Lizette, you actually spoke to millennials who are doing this right now for this story, and I love that detail. I'm curious, we've seen a lot of euphoria this year, whether it's meme stocks or Dogecoin. Do the investors, if you want to call them that you spoke to, is there any nervousness that, these boom times won't last? They have to sell these cards now?
It really depends on the collector. Some people, like one gentleman, Mark from Random Lake, Wisconsin, he was so in love with some of his cards that he just won't sell them. He's got a binder full of about 100. Other ones he sold. It helped him with a down payment for a condo. He isn't as worried about the fact that the values might crash because he's holding on to some of them for sentimental reasons. However, some people are a little bit nervous that, when a lot of the professional grading sites like Beckett and PSA, ones that went offline and stopped accepting new submissions earlier this year because they were just absolutely overwhelmed with people sending in these, mountains and mountains of cardboard to be graded and authenticated and then, valued. Once they get through that big lump sum, there's a possibility that the super rare cards might not be that rare. And we'll probably find that out in the months to come.
Join us again later at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.